Ethan had been driving for hours through the barren desert, the endless stretch of highway shimmering under the oppressive heat. The road was empty, the radio offered nothing but static, and the monotony was beginning to wear on him. The sun had set hours ago, leaving the desert drenched in darkness. His GPS claimed there was a rest stop ahead, though it hadn't been listed on any maps he'd checked before the trip. Desperate for a break, Ethan decided to stop. The rest stop appeared suddenly, its neon sign flickering faintly against the black sky. Desert Oasis Rest Stop. It looked old but functional, a small diner with a parking lot and a single gas pump. Relieved, Ethan parked and stretched his legs, grateful for the chance to refill his tank and grab some coffee. Inside, the diner was oddly quiet. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and a radio played faint, crackling music from a corner. A man sat at the counter sipping coffee, his wide smile seeming out of place in the eerie stillness. "Long drive?" the man asked, his voice warm but slightly off, as if he were mimicking friendliness. "Yeah," Ethan replied, taking a seat. "My GPS led me here. Wasn't sure this place even existed." The man chuckled. "Not many folks come this way anymore. Lucky for you, though. Roads out here can be tricky." Ethan ordered coffee and small talk followed. The man gave him tips on desert driving and warned about sudden weather changes. Ethan found him strange but harmless. After a quick meal, Ethan returned to his car to refuel. But when he stepped out of the diner, he froze. The parking lot was empty. His car was gone. "Hey," he shouted, spinning around. The diner behind him was now dark, its windows shattered. The neon sign was off, the letters barely legible under the moonlight. His breath quickened as he backed away, heart pounding. The gas pump, the cheerful interior, and even the man, all gone. The only sound was the wind howling through the empty lot. Where am I?" Ethan whispered, scanning his surroundings. He stumbled to the road, hoping to see his car or a passing vehicle. Instead, he found something worse. The road ahead was no longer the one he'd been driving. It was cracked, overgrown with weeds, and led not to his destination but back into the endless desert. The familiar landmarks he'd passed earlier were gone, replaced by jagged, alien rock formations. Panicked, Ethan started walking down the road, clutching his phone. There was no service. The temperature dropped unnaturally fast, and soon he could see his breath in the air. Then, he heard it. A faint shuffling behind him. "Hello?" he called, his voice trembling. There was no response, but the sound grew louder, closer. Ethan quickened his pace, glancing over his shoulder. The darkness behind him seemed alive, shifting and writhing like a living thing. A shadow emerged from the gloom. It wasn't the man from the diner, but something taller, its limbs unnaturally long, its face shrouded in darkness. "Leave me alone." Ethan screamed, breaking into a run. The thing followed, its movements impossibly fast, its footsteps echoing louder than his own. Ethan veered off the road, plunging into the desert, his shoes crunching on the dry earth. The creature's whispers reached him now, low and insidious. "You shouldn't have stopped. You're one of us now." Ahead, Ethan saw a faint glow, the rest stop, somehow back where it wasn't before. He sprinted toward it, desperate for shelter, only to find the diner's interior warped and twisted. The walls stretched unnaturally high, and the counter was covered in blackened stains. The man from before was there, his grin now grotesque, his eyes hollow. "Told you the roads were tricky," he said, his voice layered with echoes. Ethan turned to flee, but the door slammed shut. The lights flickered, and in the flashes, he saw countless faces in the shadows, all staring at him. They looked like travelers, just like him, but their faces were frozen in terror. The whispers grew deafening, the walls seemed to close in, and Ethan felt himself being pulled into the dark. By morning, the rest stop was gone. The highway stretched uninterrupted, the desert empty save for a faint set of footprints that ended abruptly in the sand. Travelers on that road would sometimes hear faint whispers on the wind, warning them to never stop, no matter how lost they felt. The rain poured relentlessly as Clara Fisher pulled up to the driveway of the old Ashmore estate. The mansion loomed in the gloom, its towering spires disappearing into the mist. A seasoned real estate agent, Clara had been tasked with preparing the property for sale. It was a tough sell, its eerie reputation of unexplained disappearances had kept it vacant for years. But Clara wasn't easily spooked. She prided herself on being logical, grounded. She stepped out of her car, clutching her coat against the icy wind, and made her way to the grand front door. The key was heavy and cold, and as it turned in the lock, the door creaked open on its own, revealing a dark, yawning hallway. "Just another old house," Clara muttered, flipping on her flashlight. The electricity had long been cut off. The beam of light illuminated ornate, dust-covered furniture, faded tapestries, and a winding staircase that disappeared into darkness. Clara's task was simple: take photographs, note repairs, and evaluate the mansion's potential value. Yet, as she stepped inside, the door slammed shut behind her. She spun around, startled. Must be the wind, she reassured herself, though a knot of unease tightened in her chest. The hallway stretched endlessly before her, much longer than the mansion's exterior should have allowed. Doors lined both sides, each identical, their brass handles gleaming faintly. Clara tried the first door. It opened into a lavish dining room with a grand table set for 12, though cobwebs clung to the silverware. She snapped a photo and closed the door behind her. But when she turned back to the hallway, it seemed different. The hallway wasn't where she'd left it. It curved now, leading her to another row of identical doors. She frowned, shaking off the disorientation. She opened another door. This time, it revealed a child's bedroom, eerily pristine. A rocking horse stood in the corner, its paint chipped but its surface free of dust. Clara's heart skipped a beat when she saw a small photo frame on the bedside table. It held a picture of her, as a little girl, standing next to her mother. The room was unmistakably hers, her childhood bedroom. "How?" she whispered, backing out quickly. But when she returned to the hallway, it had stretched impossibly further. Panic gnawed at her resolve. She tried the next door. This one opened into a dimly lit library, the air thick with the smell of aged paper. Shelves stretched endlessly upward, filled with books she recognized, her college textbooks, her favorite novels, even the diary she'd lost years ago. "Someone's playing a trick," Clara said aloud, though her voice trembled. She grabbed the diary, flipping to a random page, but the words written inside weren't hers. Instead, the page detailed a memory she'd buried, a betrayal of a close friend in her youth. The room seemed to darken as guilt surged in her chest. Panicking now, she fled the library, only to find herself in yet another hallway, longer than before, its air heavier and colder. She opened more doors. One led to her first apartment, with its broken heater and creaky floors. another to the hospital room where her father had passed away, the sound of the heart monitor still echoing in her ears. Each door forced her to confront a piece of her past, exposing regrets, fears, and choices she had long buried. Enough, Clara screamed, slamming a door shut. She leaned against the wall, her breath shallow. This isn't real. It's just a house. But the house seemed to mock her, the walls whispering her name. A low, resonant hum began to fill the air, growing louder with each step she took. Clara ran, her flashlight flickering, until she reached a door unlike the others. It was massive, black, and adorned with an ornate golden lock. The key from the front door was suddenly in her hand, though she didn't remember retrieving it. Her hands trembled as she inserted it into the lock. With a heavy click, the door swung open, revealing a grand ballroom. At the center of the room stood a figure cloaked in shadows. "Why do you run from yourself, Clara?" it asked, its voice resonating like 1,000 echoes. "Who are you?" she demanded, though her voice cracked with fear. "I am the keeper of your truths," it said, stepping closer. The figure remained faceless, yet it felt as if it were staring into her soul. "You've spent your life avoiding your past. Now you must confront it." The doors around the ballroom flew open, revealing every room she'd entered, her childhood bedroom, the library, the hospital. They surrounded her, their contents spilling into the ballroom. The whispers grew louder, becoming an unbearable cacophony of her regrets. "No," Clara shouted, dropping to her knees. "I didn't mean for any of it. I'm not that person anymore." The shadow paused, the whispers ceasing. "Then prove it," it said softly. "Find your way out." The ballroom dissolved, and Clara found herself back in the endless hallway. But this time, a faint light glowed at the far end. Summoning her courage, she walked toward it, the house trembling around her as if resisting her escape. When she finally stepped into the light, she found herself outside, standing before the mansion's front door. The rain had stopped, and dawn broke over the horizon. Clara never spoke of what happened inside the Ashmore estate. But as she drove away, she couldn't shake the feeling that the house had been waiting for her, and that it wasn't finished with her yet. The highway stretched endlessly into the dark, moonless night. Mike, an experienced long-haul trucker, tightened his grip on the wheel as his rig roared down the lonesome road. He hated driving through this stretch of interstate, too many strange stories, too many accidents. But deadlines didn't care about his unease, and his delivery was due by sunrise. Static crackled on his CB radio, breaking the eerie silence in his cab. "Anyone out there?" Mike called, hoping for some company. "Breaker, breaker," came a reply. The voice was gruff but friendly. "Name's Roy. You runnin' solo tonight?" Mike exhaled in relief. "Yeah, feels like I'm the only one on this road." "You're not," Roy replied. "We got a convoy up ahead. Join in if you want some company." Mike spotted the faint glow of taillights in the distance and accelerated to catch up. Soon, he was cruising with a small convoy of 4 trucks, their CB radios buzzing with casual chatter. It felt good not to be alone, even if he didn't know these guys. But as the hours passed, unease crept back into Mike's mind. The fog had thickened, swallowing the road ahead, and the truck ahead of him, driven by a man named Jerry, suddenly vanished from sight. "Jerry, you there?" Mike asked into the radio. Static hissed. followed by a distant scream that sent chills down his spine. What the hell was that? Roy's voice cut in, his usual confidence replaced with fear. I don't know. Mike replied, scanning the road. He was right in front of me, and then, gone. Keep moving, another trucker, a woman named Carla, said. It's just the fog messing with us. Stay close. Mike didn't argue, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. One by one, the taillights of his convoy disappeared into the mist. First Carla, then Roy. Each time, their radios crackled with screams and garbled words before falling silent. Now, Mike was alone again, the fog pressing against his windshield like a living thing. His knuckles turned white as he gripped the wheel, his pulse racing. He tried to call out on the CB, but all he got was static. Then he saw it, a pair of headlights in his rearview mirror, impossibly bright and closing in fast. He glanced back, but there was no vehicle, only those blinding lights. They hovered for a moment before vanishing completely, leaving Mike's cab shrouded in darkness. Desperate for answers, he pulled his truck to the side of the road and climbed out. The air was cold and heavy, and the silence was deafening. He walked a few steps, his boots crunching on gravel, when he saw something glinting in the fog, a CB radio, smashed and abandoned. It was Carla's. Mike's heart pounded as he looked around, calling for his convoy. Roy? Carla? Anyone? A low, rumbling sound emerged from the fog, growing louder and closer. Mike turned toward it, his breath hitching as a massive, shadowy truck barreled toward him without a driver. He dove out of the way just in time, landing hard on the ground as the ghostly truck disappeared into the mist. Scrambling back to his rig, Mike climbed inside and locked the doors. He tried the ignition, but the engine sputtered and died. The CB crackled to life, and a distorted voice whispered, "You're next." Panic consumed him as the fog thickened, swirling around his truck like a predator circling its prey. Shapes began to form within the mist, figures with hollow eyes and twisted faces, pressing against the windows, their mouths open in silent screams. Mike grabbed a flashlight and leapt from the cab, running blindly down the road. The fog seemed endless, the ghostly figures always just behind him. Finally, he stumbled onto a patch of clear road, the fog retreating as dawn began to break. A passing truck stopped, and the driver leaned out. "You all right, buddy? You look like you've seen a ghost." Mike didn't respond. He turned back to the road he'd come from, but it was gone. No fog, no convoy, just an empty stretch of asphalt. As he climbed into the stranger's truck, the CB radio hissed. Among the static, he heard a faint, familiar scream, and his blood ran cold. The convoy wasn't gone. It was waiting for him. In the heart of a crumbling city stood the old Ashwood Bank, abandoned for over 50 years. Its grand facade, once a symbol of prosperity, had decayed into a haunting silhouette. Few dared approach it, deterred by rumors of strange noises and unsettling whispers that seemed to escape its locked doors. One stormy evening, a team of demolition workers was tasked with preparing the site for redevelopment. Among them was Sam, a curious and determined contractor, whose fascination with the bank's history bordered on obsession. As the crew cleared debris, Sam stumbled upon a heavy, rusted door deep in the basement. Its tarnished plaque read, "Vault 13." "Strange," Sam muttered, brushing dust from the lettering. "This wasn't in the blueprints." The foreman shrugged. "Leave it for now. We'll get to it later. But Sam's curiosity wouldn't let him wait. That night, after the others had gone home, he returned with a crowbar and flashlight. The vault door was thick, its locking mechanism a marvel of old engineering. After hours of struggle, the door finally creaked open, releasing a gust of cold, stale air that sent shivers down his spine. Inside, the light from his flashlight danced across walls lined with safety deposit boxes. Papers and ledgers lay scattered on the floor, untouched by time. At first, it seemed like any ordinary vault, but then Sam heard it, a faint, whispering sound, like the murmur of distant voices. "Hello?" Sam called, his voice trembling. The whispers stopped. He stepped inside, his footsteps echoing against the cold metal walls. As he examined the space, his light fell upon a leather-bound journal lying on a desk. Its pages were brittle, but the ink remained vivid, as though it had been written yesterday. The entries detailed the final days of the bank. In 1972, during an attempted heist, a group of employees and customers had been herded into the vault by armed robbers. But before the thieves could escape, the bank's security system engaged, sealing Vault 13 shut. The journal belonged to a woman named Clara, one of the trapped employees. Her writing began hopeful. "The police will come soon. They have to. We just need to stay calm." But as the days passed, her tone grew desperate. "We've been knocking, screaming, but no one answers. The air is heavy, and food is scarce. There's something wrong with the others. They're hearing things, whispering." Sam felt a chill run down his spine. He flipped to the final entry. "I don't know how long we've been here. The whispers are louder now, and I see shadows where there should be none. Something is in here with us. If anyone finds this, please, don't open the door." Suddenly, the vault door slammed shut, plunging Sam into darkness. He dropped the journal, his breath quickening as the whispers returned, louder and closer. "Who's there?" he shouted, spinning around. His flashlight flickered, casting fleeting shadows on the walls. The air grew colder, and the faint scent of decay filled his nostrils. The whispers formed words now, fragmented and overlapping. "Why didn't they save us? It's so cold. We were forgotten." Sam backed toward the door, desperately trying to pry it open, but the lock wouldn't budge. The whispers turned into anguished cries, and the shadows on the walls began to take shape, faint, ghostly figures of men and women with hollow eyes and sunken faces. "Please," Sam begged. "I didn't mean to disturb you." One figure stepped forward, translucent and skeletal. Its face was a blend of sorrow and rage. "You opened the door," it rasped, its voice echoing with the others. "You brought us back." The figures closed in, their cold presence sapping the strength from Sam's limbs. His flashlight fell to the floor, its beam illuminating the journal's final page. Scrawled beneath Clara's last words was a new message, written in fresh ink. "Welcome to Vault 13. When the crew arrived the next morning, the vault door stood ajar, but Sam was nowhere to be found. Inside, they found his flashlight and the journal, but no other sign of him. The whispers, however, lingered, faint but unmistakable. The demolition was halted, and the bank was sealed once more. Yet, locals swear that on quiet nights, if you stand near the ruins of Ashwood Bank, you can still hear the whispers of those trapped in Vault 13, and the voice of one more soul who should have stayed away. The Ganges River, or Ganga as it is called in India, is one of the most sacred rivers in the world. To millions of Hindus, it is not just a river, it is a living goddess, believed to purify the soul and wash away sins. People travel from all over India and beyond to bathe in its waters, offer prayers, and perform rites for the departed. Its banks are lined with ghats, steps that lead into the river, where rituals of life and death take place daily. In places like Varanasi, one of the oldest cities in the world, the Ganges is a symbol of life, death, and rebirth. However, alongside its religious significance, there exists a darker side to the river, a side filled with strange occurrences, eerie experiences, and unsettling tales of ghostly encounters. While many come to the river with reverence and devotion, others speak of inexplicable phenomena that have occurred along its shores for centuries. One of the most haunted places along the Ganges is the city of Varanasi, where the river's spiritual importance is most palpable. Known for its ghats where thousands of cremations take place each year, Varanasi is considered a place of spiritual liberation. Hindus believe that dying here and having their ashes scattered in the Ganges brings moksha, freedom from the cycle of rebirth. But not all spirits find peace in the waters of the Ganges. It is said that the souls of those who are not properly cremated or who die untimely deaths often linger near the river, unable to move on. Many people who live along the banks of the Ganges or visit for spiritual reasons have reported hearing strange sounds in the night. The most common of these sounds are soft whispers or calls from unseen voices. Some describe hearing the cries of the dead, especially near the ghats where bodies are set aflame. A particularly chilling story comes from a woman named Priya, who traveled to Varanasi for the first time. It was late at night when she decided to walk along the river, watching the moon's reflection ripple across the water. As she stood by the edge, she heard a faint voice calling her name. Startled, she looked around but saw no one. The voice repeated, "Help me." She was alone, or so she thought. Turning back toward the water, she heard it again, closer this time. A cold shiver ran down her spine as the voice grew more desperate. Priya, feeling a sense of growing dread, ran back to her hotel, the voice still echoing in her mind. That night, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was following her, a presence that lingered even after she left Varanasi. The sense of something watching, something lingering, is a feeling many visitors have described when they come to the Ganges. The river, with its ancient history, seems to hold more than just the memories of the living. There are accounts of mysterious disappearances, especially of travelers who wander too far or venture out onto the river at night. Some simply vanish, never to be found, while others are believed to have drowned in the river's current. Locals speak of how the Ganges sometimes claims those who do not show respect or who approach the river with impure hearts. In the 1950s, a group of foreign tourists visited Varanasi to perform spiritual rituals. They spent several days by the Ganges, meditating and participating in prayers. On the final night, they gathered near the river to offer one last prayer. As they chanted, an eerie stillness took over the area. The river, which had been flowing so calmly, suddenly became turbulent. The air grew thick, and the group heard faint whispers, low and rhythmic. But they couldn't understand the words. Then, in an instant, one of the tourists, Emma, collapsed. Her body went limp, and it was as if she could no longer breathe. Her companions rushed to help, but before they could reach her, Emma vanished, gone without a trace. The river, still turbulent, held no sign of her. No body, no evidence of struggle, just the rippling water. When the others tried to find her, they could not. They searched along the banks, but there was nothing. Emma was never seen again. It is not the first time such disappearances have occurred along the Ganges. Over the years, many individuals, especially outsiders unfamiliar with the area, have vanished while exploring the riverbanks or venturing into the water. Some believe that the Ganges, in its deep, flowing currents, holds a kind of power that takes those it deems unworthy or disrespectful. It's as if the river has its own consciousness, one that punishes those who try to take more than what is given. Perhaps the most chilling part of the Ganges River is the strange, often unexplainable, phenomena that occur at night. Locals and visitors alike have reported hearing unsettling sounds coming from the river after dark, soft chants, faint cries, and the distant sound of drumming. Some people have even claimed to hear the sounds of footsteps behind them when no one is near. It is said that the spirits of the dead walk the shores of the Ganges, lingering in the place where their ashes were scattered, unable to find rest. The river's current is said to carry the souls of the departed, but some spirits, especially those who were not properly cremated, are said to remain trapped along the riverbanks. People who visit Varanasi often describe an overwhelming sense of being watched. Even in the most peaceful moments, as they sit by the river, they feel as though unseen eyes are upon them. Some say they sense the spirits of the dead moving just out of view, while others report visions of shadowy figures appearing in their peripheral vision. It's as if the Ganges itself is alive, watching, judging, and sometimes, calling out to the living. The Ganges River is undeniably sacred, offering a sense of connection to the divine for those who approach it with reverence. But beneath its tranquil surface lies a mystery, a deep, ancient power that remains beyond human understanding. The spirits of the river seem to linger, calling out to those who pass by, offering both peace and terror. The haunting of the Ganges continues, and the eerie whispers of its past can be heard if you listen carefully enough. Some say it is the river's curse, one that claims those who are unworthy or who come seeking too much. Whether it is a force of good or something more sinister, the Ganges remains a place where life and death intertwine, and where the living must always tread carefully.